There was a tiger and an alligator rescued from a New York high-rise we kept, and that was from, like, a drug dealer who had, like basically, they were protecting his drugs at the apartment, and so it was like that those were, like, sky-lifted out of the windows because they couldn't get into the apartment.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Money, Loyalty, Legacy. My name is Matt.
And you're with boy Ross, aka the Champ. Today's guest is a professional mixed martial artist and former collegiate wrestler, a four-time state champion in high school, which led him to the powerhouse of Ohio State University, becoming a four-time Division I All-American, winning the Big Ten championship in 2010, and was named the most outstanding wrestler of the championship, later being inducted into the Ohio State University's Athletics Hall of Fame in 2020. Taking his wrestling skills into the cage, where he became a two-time World Series of Fighting champion and PFL 2018 and 2019 featherweight champion, winning the tournament prize of $1 million. Please welcome the party, Lance Palmer.
Dude, that's an introduction. That's a good introduction. I don't think anybody's ever done one like that.
I was playing that.
I'm not gonna lie, dude. I mean, like your pedigree and it's a lot. I was like trying to break it down. I'm like, there's so much. I gotta cut it down to something. Like, I'm not trying to cut you short, brother.
No, I know. That was nice. I liked it. That was a good introduction.
So I watched some of your other podcasts. We're going to switch up a little bit right off the bat.
Nice.
So growing up, you grew up with 9 black bears, 6 tigers, 2 lions, and 10 wolves. Is this correct?
Yeah.
Now-
it varied from year to year, depending like if we had one pass or had new ones or whatever. But yeah, like basically grew up with a farm of exotic animals.
Okay, so people, there's an aura about Khabib, right, and him wrestling a bear, but you pretty much on that with the amount of exotic animals you grew up with, correct?
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
just wrestling the bears for us was like a daily thing. Like we'd feed the animals every day because it was just part of our life.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And so like
this is real. This is why I told him I was going to surprise.
Yeah.
He didn't know what I was going to bring up in the beginning.
Yeah.
I
So
knew about
gnarly.
this a little bit, but I'm like, this is gonna be a joke.
But what people don't realize, like, because it sounds crazy now because it was so long ago, after there's a lot of things that had happened from like 2011 and 12 to where people in Ohio aren't necessarily able to own exotic animals anymore. So that's kind of when that was taken from us. But my entire life, like my dad started training bears since before I was born or as I was born. So like 1987 is when my dad was already doing all this stuff. So this is light years before the whole thing with Khabib happened, and like his popularity and things are why that became a thing. But dude, I've been doing that since he was in diapers too. So like,
You're
yeah.
the OG of that.
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
established that out here in Ohio.
Yeah, like the type of bear was probably different because I don't think they have black bears in Russia. I think they're more grizzly bears, or maybe they do. I don't know enough about it, but North American black bear is what we had. And all of our bears were black bears of just different color schemes and things like that. But that was like, that's what we did. And we knew the bears very well. They're part of the pig family. So you can train them like a dog. That's what people don't understand about, you can't compare them to a dog, like temperament wise, but like they listen. They want to be an animal that you can have them, listen to you and do the things you want them to do. And that was kind of like, first it started with bear wrestling. My dad and my uncle Sam Mazzola, they would take the bear to like a bar, and they went all over the country like doing this stuff in the 80s and 90s. And Caesar the wrestling bear was the first bear ever. And his name was Smokey, but his stage name was Caesar. And so we had like 3 or 4 Caesars throughout the years that would go and wrestle people at the bar. You'd pay $20, sign the waiver, put your Dickies onesie on. Some guys wore headgears if they didn't want to get scratched, but the bears had all their teeth, all their claws. Like none of our animals were ever drugged. And if you pinned the bear's shoulder blades on the mat for 3 seconds, you'd win $1,000. So like all these drunk dudes would be like, oh, that bear up, but really it's like, dude, that bear can sit on his ass and play ping pong with your head. And that's what happened a lot of times. So it was like, as a kid, it was cool because I'm like, dude, this, like, none of my friends, like, everybody that I knew at school, they're like, "Oh, dude, you have bears?" Yeah, like they would bring them to our school for like show and tell days, like all our smaller animals. Like that was just like part of our life growing up as a family. It was wild.
How did your dad get into that?
He always says that he fell and hit his head on a rock one day and then met Sam, and then they just because Sam had already had the bear. He already owned a bear,
Okay.
but they met just through a mutual friend somewhere up near Cleveland, Ohio, where they're from, and that was just like he was like, "Hey, you want to come work for me?" And my dad became a partner in the business as it started to grow, and as they got more animals, and after they had all these mammals, they moved on to reptiles and snakes and different like we had tons of different creatures, from start to finish.
Now, there's a guy that I knew that I met when I was working at a different job. He had actually had a tiger. And I was like, dude, what is the grocery bill for this, bro?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what did you guys like? Was it expensive having these animals?
It was expensive, but the thing as well is we were labeled as a rescue through the USDA. So as you get into there's a lot of stuff because obviously like PETA loves to like throw shade on every person who owns animals of any sort. So the USDA is your like license, and when you have a certain license as a rescue facility, there's local places like we had Tyson Meat sponsorship where they would pull up with a giant like we had a giant freezer like as big as this room, and we would put meat like Tyson meat that they can't put in the stores, but it's still good. Like, how the
Right.
expiration date is for the FDA, you can only do so much with that, but we would have a full semi load come in, fill the freezer whenever we needed it, basically.
Oh, that's sweet.
And then the Ohio ODOT, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No,
ODOT, Ohio Department of Transportation, if there was local like deer got hit in the road or animal got hit in the road and it was still like a fresh kill, basically, we could get that and feed that to the big cats and things. But the black bears weren't meat eaters from us at least. Like they were like corn, apples. We had a brownberry bread sponsorship, so like bread, bagels, like all the Entenmann's like donuts and all that stuff, like that would be like their treats and things like that. So we had a lot of help from like people would donate money or sponsor, a certain bear or a certain animal for its lifespan and stuff too.
Dude,
So I gotta get into this real quick. So people at home right now, right?
Yeah.
They're probably thinking, what? I like how they weren't declawed. They had all their teeth. They didn't have muzzles or any on their faces or anything like
Yeah.
that, right? How are people not getting messed up? Like getting the crab scratch out of them. How are you not getting like bit? Like I know you said your dad had gotten bit, but people are
Yeah.
at home like, what? It was one of the bears was like 950 pounds, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
how are you guys not getting messed up? People are hearing this, like, what they would wrestle bears at the bars. Like, how are they not getting messed up? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
Well, honestly, I think what it comes down to, like for the people who were wrestling the bear at the bar, I think it really, in my honest opinion, over all those years, like nobody getting bit is just like a thing of luck. Cause you see stuff on TV or like Siegfried and Roy or whatever. It's usually like the owners of the animal who have the disagreement because you have the like, it's like, I always compare it to like when you're a teenager and you fight with your dad all the time because you just butt heads nonstop. I feel like that's what it is between the animal and the trainer is like the one day you don't want to listen, you just bite that.
Did-
So it's like it never was really like we never had an issue with any like because as you get down the line after wrestling bears wasn't the only thing we did, we would go to all these different state fairs, county fairs, like people could line up and pay to get their picture taken with a bear or a tiger or whatever. And we had like 8x10s, 5x7s, like came in a frame and everything, and like thousands, hundreds of thousands of people did this over the years. And we had not one person who was like clawed or scratched or bit during that time either. So
that's crazy.
I think it's
though.
luck,
Yeah.
really, because there's a lot of people who've had things happen with their businesses. Like if you watch like, Tiger King or like Doc Antle, who was in that film for a little bit, we knew him very well. And he was like the only owner of Ligers at the time. Like he was like the first person who even had a Liger. And we were like, what the is a Liger? Like we were at an outdoor show in Cleveland, Ohio. And that was like back in the 90s when we had first met him. And he had a trailer full of big cats, like huge cats. His cats are, they're like the biggest captive animals I've ever seen. And like, if they were acting up or they were fighting with each other, he would, like, go in the trailer, close the door, and you just hear him, like, taking care of these animals. I'm like, "How the f does he not get just attacked?"
Yeah.
But it's a respect thing, and it's, like, one of those things where, like, he spoke to him in a different language. I can't remember his background, but his name is Bhagavan Antle. I just don't remember like, where he's from, but he would speak in his native tongue to them, and, like, that's how he talks to all his cats. So he can come up to him, like, and they'll, like, do it back to him, and, like, he has a crazy relationship with animals. Like, out of anybody I've ever met, this guy and his son does it a lot now too. I think Cody is his name. Cody Antle. He's got a huge following on social media because he's, like, riding tigers in his property and, like, doing crazy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a relationship thing with the animal
Yeah.
to where they're not gonna like, a big cat is way, way more, I would say, dangerous just because if you look at a house cat, they're, like, stupid. You know, they'll, like, go tackle the wall and, like, jump at a laser and do all this other stuff where, like, a big cat is a deadly version of a house cat. And so, like, it's not necessarily gonna rationalize anything. It'll just, like, jump on you and bite you and then be like, "Oh, afterwards." But a bear's not like that. A bear will, like, if they're pissed about something, like, stay away from 'em, you know they're pissed. Like, you can kinda read them, like a dog more so, where a cat is just, like, a deadly house cat.
What was all the animals that you had? Because even it sounded like you were almost did like the Wizard of Oz, like lions and tigers and bears. But
Oh my.
I mean, I'm just like fascinated. I want to stay on this, but what were all the animals then? Like at one point,
I mean, we had Arctic wolves, we had gray wolves, we had 2 separate black leopards, we had mountain lions, bobcats, we had animals for, like, educational shows for schools, like, we had, skunk, cinnamon skunk, raccoons, we had a fox for a long time, she lived to be really old. We had, different types of snakes, like, I mean, shoot, we had Burmese pythons, we had albino Burmese pythons, like, we had a whole indoor section of animals that was just like different types of reptiles and things like that. We rescued, there was a tiger and an alligator rescued from a New York high rise that we kept for, shoot, probably like 2 or 3 months until we rehomed them. And that was from, like, a drug dealer who had, like, basically they were protecting his drugs at the apartment. And so it's like that those were, like, skylifted out of the windows because they couldn't get into the apartment.
Wow.
Like, to be able to, like, drug them, like, shoot them and drug them enough to get them out of there, like, it was a whole thing on the news. It was crazy.
You had 2 full-size lions though too, right? Is that correct or no?
Yeah, but our main male, his name was Dandy. He was our only male lion.
Yeah.
And then we had, I think 2 female lions that were with him.
Okay, so you gotta explain the interactions with these lions,
Yeah.
right? So you see the pictures of Mike Tyson from the 90s or whatever playing those
The white
tigers,
tigers, yeah.
But like you had a lion in Ohio, right? And
Yeah.
lions are massive, right?
Oh, yeah.
And
Probably like 600 pounds at his biggest.
and would you like go up to them and like pet them and stuff or
Well, we had the lions and the tigers, all the big cats outside because we had a big red barn. And the inside was like, it used to be a horse barn. So we had some stalls that we had some animals in that had been like reconstructed for the bigger, like wild animals. And then we had another side that was all for the bears. And they were all separated because some bears didn't get along. You couldn't keep, a lot of the bears, like you had to keep in their own separate pens unless you let them out into the outdoor pen. We had like a pond. This was 23 acres of land, but the main area that they stayed in like every night was in the barn or in the outside pens at night. And like 2 silos were part of the tigers area. So a lot of these animals had to be on their own. Like if they weren't solo, they were fighting. Like we had an area that 4 tigers were in, but once the food came out, like they would just fight each other a lot of times. So you kind of had to separate them here and there. And some of them just didn't like being around other cats. So the big lion, like you could go out back and it was like chain link fence along all those pens. And like with the big lions and stuff, we wouldn't go in there with them. Like my dad would go in there and my dad's partner, they would both go in there and like maneuver these animals around, but like they're not animals that you can trust and just go in and like lay down and pet them. Like Like,
It's a
well,
lion.
there's a guy, he's like lion whisperer or something. Like he lives in Africa,
Yeah.
and he like goes out in his car in the thing and like calls these lions in. And obviously they know him, but like we never trusted the big cats that well to just like go and lay down with them in the cage. Like it's just they're just too dangerous.
Yeah, you say all this so matter of factly, but there's lions and wolves and bears on your property. Like, are you guys? Is your family not freaking out? Like, you have friends over and there's a lion back there. Like,
Well,
are people like? Are you guys ever paranoid? What happens if they break out? Like break out of their
so
area and come in the house?
well, I mean, we have like there was a perimeter fence, like 10-foot perimeter fence with barbed wire, just because there were people that were stupid, like trying to come in and see the animal. So like we worried more about people getting in there and like getting killed or something.
Yeah.
So I mean, we've had animals get loose before as we're transporting them from like into like we had these wheeled transport cages that we would go from their pen to the trailer so we could get them like so that didn't happen. Or if we're at a show, we could walk them in the wheeled pen to get them to where we needed them, like during an outdoor show or a fair or whatever. So we had all these like I don't know, like troubleshooting things that we could do, but we did have like a mountain lion got loose one time, ran across the street. It's in the creek, and this guy's like, it's like a whole development full of people because we're like on the border of like a rural, like this street was split down the middle of the yellow lines of like a rural town and a city that's well known. Like we're like right on the border. So that's the only reason it was possible. And so this thing runs across the street and we're like trying to corner this thing with like 5 people and food and like chicken.
Dart guns or anything?
No,
Like tranquilizers? Or?
like we had things available if we needed to, or like actual weapons, like if we had to kill an animal, if it was like hurting someone or killing somebody. But that wasn't like at this point, we're like, all right, well, we can get this thing to come back. Like we just give it some chicken or food or whatever, and he comes back. But we got like all these neighbors like filming outside because they're like, there's a mountain lion in the backyard. Like that's not normal for Ohio.
Right.
Dude, I'm jealous, man. All I had was crackheads.
Yeah. Well, they're just as good.
They're fun to watch. Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, but you can't go up and pet them.
Yeah, that's true.
How were because like wolves are also like known to be vicious, right? They're predators. I mean, they're predators. The
Yeah,
lions are as well. Like, what was the interactions with them? Like, because they're known to be particularly vicious, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe in the wild, anyways.
I think in the wild, like if you just same with the bears, like if you just walked up to one in the wild, like that's not something I'm gonna try and pet.
Right.
Like no matter what my history is of knowing the behavior of an animal, like I'm not a zoologist. I just have experience for my entire life of being around these animals. So you'll have like a person who studied zoology, they'd be like, oh, well, so this and that. And it's like, no, like I was around these animals
Right.
my whole life and I still wouldn't just walk up to one and be like, oh, hey, come here. Like these wolves, we didn't breed them, but we had them since they were pups. So they treated us like they're people, like you'd be going up to the pen and they're jumping and howling and like they want to get to you and lick you. Like they were just like a dog to us. So it was like a pack of dogs in our opinion. But when people see the wolves, they're like, those wolves are stalking us outside the pen, walking back and forth. But then if we walk up, like they want you to pet them. They're like, you could run in there and lay down with them, and they're just like a bunch of dogs.
And did you do that?
Yeah, yeah. Me and my brother always went in there with them. Like that was like we actually brought like 3 or 4 of them like to a smaller pen by our house, and we would like hang out with them. But they're escape artists. Like the pens that we had on the property had tops and fencing underground because they could dig out, they could climb out. Wolves are very good at escape artists, so that's why we couldn't have them like at our house, like close to the house, because they would just get out unless we built like a legit pen.
Were you like the most popular kid on earth, like in Ohio for having all this stuff? I mean,
I
you
wouldn't
got to say, like,
I wouldn't
dude,
say
like
that.
how many people can say this though? You know what I'm saying? Like nobody. I
Yeah.
mean, like
I mean, it wasn't things that we like brought up to people though. Like
Yeah.
kids in my school and all my close friends, like they all knew because it was like, hey, you want to go feed the animals with us? Like they would just come over and like we'd go hang out. Like their parents knew. It wasn't like my dad was super strict in general in life at that time. So their parents and their people knew like we just weren't like a crazy family. Like we were crazy with wrestling and our animals, but everything was done in such a strict manner that like we weren't allowed to go over there by ourselves and just like play with the animals. Like, that was never a thing because my dad, he always had to oversee us. Like, if we were gonna go wrestle with the bears, and my friends, there were some of my friends that did wrestle with the bears. Like, some of my wrestling buddies wanted to do it, so we would go over there and, wrestle with the bears, and, like, that was, like, something that they would talk about the rest of their life. Like, to this day, I could message them, and they'd be like, "Dude, that was, like, the most crazy thing I've ever done." But my dad was super strict. It wasn't just like, "Hey, go over with your buddies and let me know if you need anything." Like, never that way. My dad was always, like, overseeing everything that went on.
How long was it that until, like, you guys got rid of all the animals? Because I'm just not gonna try to jump ahead of stuff, but
Yeah.
it seemed like your dad was very involved with
Mhm.
you and your brother's, like, wrestling career, right?
Yeah.
100%, and he traveled everywhere when you guys went.
Yeah.
So, was that an issue while, like, wrestling came more prominent when you guys were growing up, and then you kinda have to take away from the animals because it's obviously probably very time consuming, I'm
For
assuming,
sure.
right? And then you're
Yeah.
traveling for wrestling.
It's an everyday thing.
Mhm.
So there was a lot of the turmoil and like headbutting was between my dad's business partner and him because my dad was all hands on, whereas his business partner wasn't that he wasn't hands on, he was just more of like the face. Like he was the one that wanted people to know that he had animals. And my dad wasn't that way. He just loved animals and that's how he fell into it in the first place. And so when my dad had to go out of town for, we wrestled all over the country as kids, and that was like my dad's passion. Like my dad had me at 17 years old, so he didn't have like a young adulthood. That was it. Like he was a dad. So, us wrestling and the animals, that was his two loves, and that's what he poured all his time in. And so when it came to us wrestling and being serious with wrestling, that was something that my godfather didn't really like. He was like he understood it to a certain extent, but he was a single guy, didn't have kids. Like his animals were like his kids, so like he understood it from that uh perspective. But it wasn't a thing where he agreed with a lot of the that went on. Like my dad, we worked out we had a whole basement gym. We worked out in the basement. Like before, like he always brought this up, my godfather, he always brought this up, like, "You guys worked out before you opened Christmas gifts some years." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, but that was years where whether it was in high school or middle school where we had big tournaments coming up." So it wasn't like we were like, "Oh man, we gotta go work out." Like we had goals that we wanted to accomplish. It wasn't just like a one-sided thing where my dad made us go down in the basement and work out when we had a tree full of presents upstairs. It was like, "Hey, get up early. We'll get our workouts done. Then you guys can open gifts and hang out the rest of the day." Or like if we're cutting weight or something, we had to watch our food intake, our diet. Like a lot of things got misconstrued just because, our godfather would portray it that way. And I think when you mentioned pinned, like
Right.
that was
Yeah.
something that they said in there, but it wasn't like he was like, you know, cracking the whip. It was more like, hey, we have goals that we want to accomplish, and all that stuff comes first. And obviously the animals came first too. So there were some holidays like where we'd get up, go feed the animals, then do our Thanksgiving dinners and stuff like that. So like obviously you have live animals that you're caring for, and you have to make sure that they're fed, they're watered, their pens are clean. Yeah, well, like we shoveled a lot of over the years because those bears, dude, they're like a elephant, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, it's not glamorous by any means, but
Yeah.
that was normal life to us.
No, it's
I
cool because no, real quick though, I came across the movie Pinned, and then I saw your basement gym. Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's dope as hell, you know what I'm saying? But,
Yeah. Yeah,
I
my dad, like, he put all, he went all in. Like, there was no, like, retirement fund or anything for him. Like, that was for us to do well in our sport and, get our college paid for, and, he went all in on it. And I think, that's kind of like he struggles now with some of that because that was like his favorite part of life between the animals and the kids growing up. So, he went all in.
Before we have to go back to the Bears for a second. Like, so first of all, you have to tell us the craziest story that you heard about somebody wrestling a bear in a bar. That's one part.
Yeah.
The second part is, what is this story about these two girls wrestling Caesar, the bear, at a bar? So can you talk about both?
Yeah.
First, what's the craziest? Because there's got to be some wild. We just kind of glazed over that.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
There's drunk going to the bar and wrestling bears.
Yeah.
For
I would wrestle that.
give us like a crazy story that you had to have heard something, right?
I mean, like once I was in high school, like I mean, When I was like 4 years old, I was a cashier for like when they were doing pictures with the animals at state fairs and like I remember the Michigan State Fair, like when my grandma was still alive, she would come with me and just sit with me at the register, and I was the one taking all the money. The line was like 3 hours long. We literally had to like stop for an hour just to eat, let the animals rest. Like it was crazy in the like mid 90s. Like all this stuff was wild to think about. But with the bear wrestling shows, that was like it was a little more rowdy because like my dad's like truck and trailers were shot at before. Like there were people like in Pennsylvania and like after a show, like you're dealing with like old school like biker gangs and crazy. Like this is a wild west back then.
Yeah.
So it's like there was a lot of that went on, and like they were getting paid by the bar to go there. So like if went down, like my dad and Sam were like they were, they were down for whatever. Like they had to, they were getting paid regardless of what happened or
Real
else.
tough dudes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like Sam was like my dad's like people are like, man, your dad's nuts. He's crazy. Like, and he is. But Sam was a guy who like he had 27 felonies. Like he was a sicko. Like he dealt
27.
yeah,
He's
like he
sicko.
dealt coke in the 80s, like drugs, like he like yeah, that's what I mean. Like, but he was one of those guys like he'd bury you out back if he had to.
Okay.
And probably did. So it was like these are the two guys, like they're like the classic people. Well, not classic people. You look at what's his name, and he's just a fruit ball. But but you got the guys who are just like they're like, yeah, these two guys should probably be around exotic animals
yeah.
because they're psychos. Yeah.
Did anybody get particularly like messed up, or was somebody like extremely intoxicated that just got like smoked or something? Did you hear any like wild? There had been some kind of wild story.
So
right?
so my dad was always in charge. So Sam was always on the mic. My dad was always in charge of like signing the people up, collecting the money, making sure they sign the waivers, making sure they know the rules. Like, yeah, you're wrestling a bear, but also like there was no like eye gouging, pulling hair. Like obviously if you do that to a bear, he's gonna bite you. So there was like a long list of rules. Nothing that would prevent you from being able to pin it if you thought you could pin the bear, but like don't do stupid shit. Like don't grab his balls, don't stick your fingers up his like things that you like think a bear's gonna yeah, exactly.
Do
Like
stuff now that you would do.
yeah, exactly. Like it is 2024, but it's like back then it wasn't
still
normal.
fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So like there was a big set of rules back then for this stuff. So I mean that's the one thing that like a lot of people don't realize is like, yeah, you're wrestling a bear, but also if you wrestle with the bear, like legitimately wrestle the bear, they do this with each other in the wild. Like you could pull up a video of bears wrestling and you'll see bears like hitting low singles and like rolling around with each other. Like they do that for fun. So you're not making the bear do something it doesn't necessarily want to do. But if you do something that is going to piss it off, then yeah, he's going to hurt you.
Yeah.
Did anybody
So
pin the bear?
there was like, so I think there was a set of girls that did pin the bear. And then, yeah, like two girls.
That's the story I was getting.
Yeah, so there were two girls that had pinned the bear, and then there was like one or two other guys along the time that did pin the bear. But most people, obviously, if they're intoxicated, there was a limit though. Like if my dad knew that you were f***ed up and you weren't going to follow instructions, he wouldn't let you do it. And that those were the people that would usually get pissed and like be disgruntled because they wouldn't let them do it. But it's like, man, you're at a bar, you're already f***ed up. You're not listening to the instructions. You're probably going to cause yourself an injury or get bit or hurt or something. So like he was strict about that type of stuff. But also you have these like most people are intoxicated if they're going to wrestle a bear. I didn't know too many sober people aside from myself or guys I knew like that would do it at a bar in front of a bunch of people cuz my godfather would be on the mic like talking like saying the funniest shit because he was just like he was good on the mic. He was a good talker. Like car salesman style. And he would just be like, oh man, that bear's really sniffing her crotch. Or like he would get the crowd going. Like people love this shit. Like there's some videos that you can find on YouTube. They're like old, like 1992 videos that people had posted. And it's like, man, that's crazy to think back then of like how funny it was back then. Cause people like loved it.
Yeah.
And then now like Like, you could never do that
Yeah,
nowadays.
no,
So people are gonna right now as you're saying that, they're
Yeah.
like, where do I go find that video? Like,
I know on YouTube, if you just look up like Caesar the Wrestling Bear or Caesar Bear Wrestling, like
Okay.
that's how I found them because they were just random videos that like because we have tons of tapes, VHS, like stuff we've converted to DVD of our own from old things. But like if you go on there, there's a couple people that have posted old videos,
Okay.
and it's funny because you'll see like this dude tries to headlock the bear, and the bear's like. So Smokey Caesar, the first Caesar, which was Smokey, he was the one that was 900 and some pounds. So he would literally sit on his and like be like standing up. Like he'd be as tall as a full grown. I'm not a full grown man, but he'd be as tall as a
Don't
full
get
grown.
me.
Yeah, he'd be like 6 feet tall sitting on his butt because he used to do it in the corner of his cage. Like he'd sit here like this and just like rub his belly, like eat his food. Like he looked like an old man. Like you see an old like grandpa sitting in his chair when you come home from work. Like that's what he looked like. But this bear was massive for a black bear, and people would be like, "Oh man, like he's sitting down. Like this dude's gonna get him." But you got to think like a bear's shoulder to head is no neck. Like it's like a point almost to the nose. So people would think they could like headlock him or like wrestle him down. The bear would literally just like slip his head out and slam this dude on the ground and like he'd like sit on the dude like this and then like just like mess with him and like sniff his ass. Like, and that's why the shows were so fun because like the guy would be like dying to get off. Like he couldn't get this bear off him. The bear would be like leaning on him with one arm, and the guy's
Andre the Giant.
oh yeah, exactly. And Sam would literally be like talking it up the whole time, and like and the whole thing, and then he'd be like, oh well, yep, the bear likes this one. We might have to take him back to the trailer, like saying that the bear's gonna bang this dude or whatever. And so like the crowd loved that. He was a good talker, and like it was always like fun shows. There was never a time where like if you got aggressive with the bear and really try to like throw the bear down or like get the bear down, like he would literally just go like this and like put you on your back.
Right.
Like the bears are so damn strong. And so that was like that's like an idea of how the shows were mostly fun. Like there wasn't like people were serious. Like, man, if I could win $1,000, I'm gonna go this bear up. And then they get out there and realize like that bear's just toying with me and I'm getting thrown left and right and tossed around.
Right.
Like you're not gonna do like, and most people aren't in shape for more than 30 seconds.
Right.
So they're going balls out for 30 seconds and they're drunk and they get put down on the ground and they're just like, I'm done. Cause we would give them like 5 or 8 minutes a person. But after like 45 seconds to a minute, they just call it on their own. So we'd have to pull the bear off them and get them out of there.
My only other question is with the two women, right?
Yeah.
Now people are gonna think, wow, two sexy girls, lingerie play. Were they? Did they chew tobacco, drink Budweiser, and crap outside? They had to be two big broads, dude. That like were truckers.
Well, I don't
right?
think they were big chicks. I think they were just like trying to like be so gentle with the bear, like gentle, like get him to sit on his side or get him to lay down, and then they're like playing with them. That was how you could get the bear down, unless you technically knew. Like I always knew, like go to the back leg, like tip it to his butt, get him to roll to his back. The more aggressive you get, the more they're gonna be like, oh, this guy's trying to like do something to me. So the girls, like they had a way about going, gentle to get that bear like to his side, and then they roll him over because bears are shaped like an egg. They don't have like a flat back. So even if you get them like this, like they're not flat. You have to like literally get them to relax completely to get them flat. And then their back feet, they can kick you up. Like they've launched people before, like with their back feet up in the air because they're built like a bowl.
Yeah.
So like they can just shoot you up like that, and people don't realize it till they're on top of them getting kicked by the bear's bottom feet. So it's like people laugh because I know the technique, like how to wrestle a bear, but it's like because I've seen it for 25 plus years. My first whole portion of my life basically. So like as I started wrestling the bear, I learned like different techniques of like, oh well, I can just play with them, or I can just get to his side and run him to his back or whatever. So that was how the women did it. They were just, and they did it that way because obviously like two girls is more aesthetically pleasing for people to watch wrestle a bear. And also like, two girls wrestling a bear is going to be the equivalent of one giant dude trying to wrestle a bear. So that was how they, allowed that. But it made for great like back then, if there was content, that would have been great
Oh,
content.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
You know, the one thing people are probably thinking as they're listening to this as well is how in the did they get away with going into a bar like with a bear? I agree.
Yep.
This is the 80s, but
Yeah.
like, and yes, it was different times, but how are you just getting into a bar with a
American
bear?
kick ass.
yeah, 100%,
Dude,
dude.
I mean, if you
Yeah.
thought that there had to been some sort of like legalities or like insure. What about insurance or like
Yep.
they sign waivers and but like
Yeah, we had insurance, so like company insurance basically, and like I don't know, like that was all when I was super young when they started doing all that, so I don't really know exactly how that works. Like you call up like, "Hey, I own exotic animals," and they wrestle people.
right.
I have no clue how that all worked, but I know that like there was a system for it, and they did need insurance. Like especially a lot of these big fairs and shows and stuff like that. Like that's all run through like a city or state, like the state fair. That's run through the state.
Yeah.
So, like, the Michigan State Fair was a big one we always did every year, and, like, it brought in a ton of money,
Yeah.
and that was, like, a big one for us to be part of, so you had to have insurance. So, like, a lot of the things were insurance-based, but also if you're dealing with the bar owner, they want that. That draws attention to their bar back then. There was a lot of like, that was a positive thing back then. Like, nowadays, people will look at it from a negative of, like, "Oh, the bear is getting, like, harassed or hurt." It's like, dude, the bear could literally just up everyone in the bar if it wanted to. Like the bear's literally there on his own. Like he walked out of the trailer and sat there and like
Believe he's out.
yeah, like he's playing. Like if that guy wants to somebody up, that's why like all the stuff with PETA and everybody else that like is against it. Like yes, there are people that do not treat animals well. And that's a whole different conversation. But if you're thinking a grown bear, like with not drug, he's got all his teeth, all his claws, like he chose to be there because if he didn't want to get out of that trailer, he would have fucked my dad up before he even got out, and that's happened before, and that's how we know, you know. So it's like like there's no question that bear wanted to be there because if he didn't, he wouldn't have gone there.
Right. Like when you're describing this, I'm thinking of like the bar scene, like in the movie Roadhouse. So I mean,
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
pull up and it was like this wooden bar.
Yeah.
People are slamming bottles at the
The Blues Brothers.
But dude, in the 80s and 90s, that's what the bars were like.
right.
Like that was real back then.
I was saying, he just
Yeah.
marches in with this bear. I mean, that's just so
awesome, dude.
unbelievably gnarly. You know what
Like-
I mean?
Like people wouldn't believe, like even in the early 2000s, like towards the end of this stuff getting shut down legally, there was a lot of like we would go to bars in Akron and Cleveland and like these places would sell out. Like they would have the fire code would get like what's the
Fucking
occupancy.
Yeah.
Like they would like the fire people would be there because they're like, hey, you got too many people here. You got to let some people out, or like we got to shut this down. Like there were people outside, like trying to watch through the glass. Like it got crazy because in the 2000s, that was something that was more and more rare because of PETA and all these other organizations trying to shut down people like small businesses like ours who were, you know, trying to have animal entertainment. Like you look at like Ringling Brothers and all these circuses that got shut down because of that type of shit. But I mean, that's why it was so popular.
Yeah.
Now, do you think, you know, with this Khabib thing, you know, you see him wrestling a bear, I would assume, and I don't know because I never wrestled you,
Yeah.
but I'm sure you're like a oak tree, right? I'm just gonna go with that, right? I mean, from
Yeah.
college wrestling, Ohio State, everything like that. I mean, you're a beast, you know.
Yeah.
Do you think that wrestling the bear played a part? Like, and obviously, you did training your entire life.
Yeah.
Just like
yeah.
feeling that as a young age.
Yeah.
Like, you think that, and just being outdoors, like, help with that?
I think it gives you a little bit of confidence. Just know, like a bear doesn't know,
I
like.
would hope it would give you.
Well,
confidence, just
I think of it like this. So, like, a bear doesn't know that you're scoring points on it. He's just playing. So, like, he goes to his back. I'm like, oh, dude, I got 3 back points. Like, he doesn't know. Like, but in a kid's head, you're like, dude, if I'm wrestling these bears, I'm not afraid of a kid. A kid, yeah, like a kid may be a better wrestler. Like, I may lose because a kid's a better wrestler, but I'm not afraid to wrestle.
Yeah.
Like, it took a lot of that fear out of me. The same with fighting. Like, I'm not afraid to fight somebody because I'm fighting one person. Yeah, I could get hurt, I could get knocked out, I could get submitted, whatever, but like I can't get killed. You know, like how a bear could kill me at least. Yeah, anything can happen in a cage, but like as far as fighting and wrestling, like I was never afraid to compete. Like you get the nerves for competition, but I was never afraid to compete because I'm like, dude, I could risk my life going to feed the animals one day. Like, you know, there's people die feeding exotic animals in their pens every day, like when they have organizations like we had. So, like, I was more afraid of that than anything else, So, yeah, I mean, I think it helped with confidence
Oh,
overall.
how could it not, man? You know what I mean? Like, it's just it's mind blowing that you're around these animals. You may have had to, because like the average human being would be terrified.
Yeah.
If I walked out in the woods right now, Ross and I went for a jog or something, and a wolf came at us, I'm taking I would be terrified.
Yeah.
Or a black bear. 9 or
I'm gonna let you run. You get your ass away, and I'll get the fuck out of
You
here.
go the other way.
Right. You
You're gonna see the tracks in.
Yeah,
it's
too
gotta
fast.
help, especially like as a little kid growing up around that. It's got to help like program your mentality and your mind, like
Yeah.
a sense of fearlessness. You know what I mean?
I think on that note too, I think it kind of like I'm not gonna say scars you. What's another desensitizes you? I think it desensitized me to a lot of like not violence, but just like it desensitized me to like what things would make me scared. Like somebody pulls a gun on me outside, I'm like, oh, like I know that there's no option for me there. Like I have to like take things slow or whatever. But like I know if somebody's trying to come up to me and grab me or fight me, like I'm like, dude, get the off. You know what I mean? Like I'm not afraid to be in a fight or be in a like an altercation. And I think that's what the animals really helped. And I think growing up, like my dad's a different breed too. Like growing up with my dad and my parents, the way like how strict he was and how just like off the cuff he is and screws loose and this and that. Like that definitely had a part in how I grew up too. But I think just everything all together just like set me up for a thing where like I'm kind of desensitized to like normal feelings or normal fears and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so let's cut to the chase. I made an ebook. It's got over 700 methods and strategies to build your YouTube channel to get views. It actually works. I made this because over the 3 years prior to this podcast, I bought all the courses, spent thousands of hours watching all these YouTube videos, and none of them actually give you any information. This ebook has 700 plus secret strategies and methods that only top YouTube influencers use. I promise it works. Money back guarantee. Trust me, go buy it now. Half off.